PSG was bought by Qatar in 2011, and Nasser Al Khelaifi was installed as their chairman by Qatar. And PSG set out to win it all by buying it all. Big names every season, unprecedented spending, and the glamour of it all in Paris, and success followed as PSG dominated, domestically at least. But Qatar, they wanted the Champions League, so they didn't slow down. More. Of course, that is, until a certain Marcus Rashford scored. But the Qatari ownership refused to stop. So Messi arrived, and with Neymar and Mbappe and Messi, PSG really did have it all on paper. But still, they couldn't win the Champions League. Year after year, they were knocked out of the competition. So how good has the ownership of PSG been by Qatar? Has it been good for the club? What have they got right? What have they got wrong? I think it's time that we take a look, because as United fans, we need to understand this. So, let's look into the ownership of PSG by Qatar. How are we doing, everyone? I hope you liked that intro, and I hope you like this slightly different style of videos. So many of you enjoyed the research videos on United People's TV, so this is going to be the beginning of hopefully a nice long series looking at big topics. And this particular video focuses on Qatar's ownership of PSG, because for a lot of United fans, the Qatari delegation, led by Sheikh Jassim, is the best new bid for Manchester United. So let's take a look at the ownership of PSG, try and run through the numbers, look at the successes and the failures they've had, and any lessons that we can learn about how the Qatari ownership has gone there that could potentially come across to Manchester United. So if you do enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like on it. Make sure you subscribe. And big up to Tom for helping with the research of this video. But let's go back to 2011 when Qatar bought PSG. They bought 70% of PSG and immediately installed Nasser Al Khelaifi as the chairman of PSG, who of course is chairman of QSI, the Qatar Sports Investment. Direct links to the state. They bought 70% of the club back in 2011. And they brought in Leonardo as a sporting director straight away. Now, that's a big thing that they did that I think United fans are going to be looking and going, wow, I hope that happens at our club. John Murtough, currently the director of football, but it remains to be seen whether he's going to stay on. And PSG at that point, you know what happened. And what has happened the whole time that Qatar has owned PSG, they have spent big. They've always been big spenders. And they have had some success off the back of it. Domestically, of course, the failures in the Champions League, and that's going to be a big part of this video, always hangs over the Qatar ownership of PSG and whether or not it is a successful failure. But if you look at how much they've spent, look at that. The net spending, well, Manchester United are above them. Imagine that. We managed to spend more money than PSG. Jeez. But in terms of their revenue, now this is a very interesting part of the whole ownership, because if you look at what happened when they came in here, it was 101 million euros, and where it's grown to here, over 500 million. Interestingly enough, look at that, nearly in parallel with City and the ownership there by Abu Dhabi. Now, how did they do that? If you take a look here, actually, first, you can see that in 2021, they had the 5th highest revenues in global football, just behind Manchester United. And as I said, if you're going to ask as to how they've done that, we take a look here at the numbers in a bit more detail. You can see that in the 2021-22 accounts, big up to Swiss Ramble for this, by the way. His look into sort of data behind football is fantastic. It really helps. You can see that they made 112 mil from their match day, only 118 from TV and commercial. And you can see how important commercial is there. They're a massive commercial there, and also match day. They make a lot of money from the Parc des Princes, which is a kind of a sticking point of their ownership. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But in terms of, some might call it financial doping. It kind of is. The sponsorship deals they've got. If we go back and look at these numbers here, you can see right there, the commercial, the way that they've grown it, they've just got big. Oh, okay. Should we just get Qatar Airways in to sponsor the club? Yeah, right. Whack it on the books. But UEFA have actually cracked down on that. And anything that they did with PSG in terms of overinflated sponsorship deals is kind of what City have done. That's kind of in the past now. That's something that they did there, but they would not be able to do, not Qatar itself, but a Qatari delegation, would not be able to do at Manchester United. In terms of the profit and loss, though, look at this. Last year, looking at the champions all around Europe, over 360 million euro loss. That's not sustainable. Now, in terms of the total staff cost, the player cost, look at the wages. Mbappe, Messi, Neymar. Their wage bill must be off the scale, and it is kind of off the scale. Look how much higher it is than the rest. Is that 90%? My word, that number is big. And of course, UEFA in the FFP rules, they're bringing it in so within the next 3 to 4 years, you have to get the revenues to wage ratio down to around about 70% to be in line with the new rules. So they've grown the revenue massively. Kind of happens when you invest billions into a club. Yes, they've had success domestically. Yes, hasn't happened around Europe. And as I said, there is a big problem with the Parc des Princes as well. This is Anne Hidalgo, who is the Paris mayor. I'm not sure if she still is, but at the time of researching this, she is. They don't own that stadium. They want to redevelop. They've put in around about 75 million into the stadium itself, but they want to do a massive redevelopment project. But because they only lease the stadium and they've fallen out with the mayor, they're at a crossroads and they can't invest any more. And as I said, if you're looking at the Qatari ownership of PSG, so many people are just going to be focusing on the Champions League and the lack of the Champions League because we've knocked them out. And plenty, every single season. Since 2011 now, look, before the Qatari ownership, PSG had won 2 league titles and now won 10. So they've dominated domestically, 8 league titles to their name. But for everything that they've spent, for everything that they've done, they have still not won the Champions League. And it's a bit of a black mark of the ownership. Interestingly enough, something that's happening now, what's happened is Luis Campos came in as a new sporting director, and you can see that they've got a little bit of a difference in transfer strategy. Like Nordi Mukiele are coming in the summer, Hugo Ekitike. That instead of going big on the likes of kind of frustrated stars around Europe, like Di Maria, there's too many to name in terms of big signings that they have made. But it marks a bit of a shift, and it links back to the fact that they now have got to create more of a sustainable business. Sustainability isn't a word you would use with the Qatari ownership of PSG. Now, I don't think that's going to really cause too much of a concern for anything to do with Manchester United because it will be operated differently. Manchester United don't have to be turned into a mega club. We already are. And as I said, if you were to take a look at these numbers here, I mean, pretty much on par. In fact, it was on par. Exactly the same. But look how much more reliant on the commercial side of things PSG are. Interestingly enough, their collab with Air Jordan, one of my favourite collabs, fashion-wise anyway. Something in terms of real positives, there's one major one, and that's the redevelopment of their training ground. You can see the original facilities there when they took over and what they have just built. Look at the scale of that. Look at the scale. Now, I believe that the women's team is going to be training here and maybe the academy sides, and then the men's team is going to be moving over there. I don't know why you need that many pitches, but that's a lot. That is a huge facility. And for United fans, looking at there, I don't know where we get the land for that. I'm sure there would be. But they have, and they paid for it all. Major training ground redevelopments. And as I said, there are definite concerns around Qatar's human rights record and with how women are treated. But the PSG women's team has been successful, won the Champions League twice, and they locked Lyon out last year before. They have had some successes there. So in terms of the overall success or the failures of Qatar's ownership of PSG, there is no doubt that they have turned a club from a bang average club into one that dominates domestically. Not completely. Remember under Poch when he lost, was it to Lille on the last day of the season? It's not a clean sweep of titles. There's a massive success in the regeneration of the training ground facilities. But the lack of the Champions League is a big stain on it. What lessons do you think can be taken away? I think the fact that they brought Leonardo in as a sporting director, I forgot to even mention it, they wiped off the debt straight away. Tens of millions of debt at PSG got wiped off immediately. Should have mentioned that at the start of the video. But if you stuck around, you've got to learn that bit of knowledge. Let me know what you think about the Qatari ownership of PSG, because there are definitely some successes, some lessons to be learned. As I said, that sort of financial doping in terms of just big commercial opportunities, that can't exist at Manchester United. It will have to be a different ownership model and structure. However, the idea of getting a sporting director in, you know what I think about Paul Mitchell. I think that's quite vital. You let me know what you think about whether or not it was a success or a failure, and what you think that United can learn from that